welcome you all. So we are 3 minutes in and I see our participants are still joining, but perhaps just to start with a quick round of introduction. My name is Rohini Swaminathan and I work with UNICEF as an emergency specialist, but also sit at the executive board and steering committee with Women in Geospatial. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a topic very personal to my heart because I suffer with it quite a bit. So I am the most interested to learn from our excellent speaker today. But before I go into that, I want to so quickly introduce a fabulous facilitator, Sarah. She's currently an MSc student with the University of Leicester, and Sarah has a very impressive background working with the Institute of Tropical Agriculture, as well as she was a founder and team lead for a nonprofit Secure a Future Foundation. And Sarah, I can see your spirit already, so I will stop talking here and ask you to kind of take over and let's get started.
Hello, everyone. So this is Sarah, and currently I'm a student of GIS at the University of Leicester, as Rohini has introduced me. So I'm very much interested in everything GIS, and I also always want to help people, especially the females, to grow in their careers. So especially married ones who tend to have a kind of relapse once married, and then the career front just suffers. So I kind of give them this push. You can do it. So, and I've suffered with imposter syndrome before, so this is an interesting topic to me too, and I do hope that we have an interesting time together this evening. So as we start, I would want to introduce our speaker for tonight, Isabella. Isabella is a wonderful person and has spent the last 15 months in the tech industry, although across a range of business roles. And you agree with me that this would have given her the opportunity to travel the world, and also not traveling the world alone. This has afforded her the opportunity to live in 3 different continents. Also, she was one of the first members of the Kayak's European leadership team, and she was responsible for the launching of the travel search engine in Italy and growing it across Southern Europe also. So she has spent 10 years at Google across different functions and offices around the world. And our last position there was strategic product partnership lead for Google Maps, focusing on cities, urban mobility, and social and environmental impact. So in 2020, Isabella joined the global addressing startup What 3 Words, where she leads the international market business development team. And interestingly, she's also a certified executive coach and a seasoned startup mentor. So we are privileged to have Isabella here with us this evening. Welcome, Isabella.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. Glad to be here. And I'll tell you more about how I got interested in imposter syndrome, because I clearly, I started researching and reading more because I'm definitely, I've been exposed to it firsthand many times.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. I just asked another question really quickly to find out how many people have felt imposter syndrome. And assuming we have almost 99 participants showing up with our title, we have almost 82% of them saying yes. And what I'm really proud of here is we have 7% people saying no. And towards the end of the session, I want to hear more from them. And 11% saying maybe, and I didn't know. So perhaps I could just start by asking one basic question to you, Isabella. What is imposter syndrome?
Yes, I think that's a good starting point. And that's the only slide that I've prepared because I think it's quite important to unpack the definition, and there are many ways to define it, but I found one that kind of really well explains the context. So first of all, imposter syndrome is a common psychological experience, and this is like really the most important thing to know. It's really common, a lot more common than you might think, and this is what really shocks people when they start confessing that they suffer from imposter syndrome, because like many other people will say, oh, me too. And usually the reaction is like, what, you? Because you're amazing. How can you suffer from imposter syndrome? Like, but it's very common. And also there is absolutely no, at least not proven, there's quite a bit of research, but no research shows any specific incident or greater incident depending on gender or socioeconomic sector or segment or industry. It's quite democratic, let's say. And then we can talk more on why we might think that women suffer more from imposter syndrome, but it's actually very common across everyone. And the second bit is it's really a psychological experience. So it's not a syndrome, it's not a disease of any sort. It's legacy wording that it's from 40 years ago, but it's not any sort of like psychological really disease or problem. It's just an experience, and it's psychological, which means it's in your head. Everything that you tell yourself is just here, and you don't really need to believe everything that you think. So that's a very important bit that we're gonna go back to. How it shows up. So it's this experience of self-doubt, inadequacy, and perceived fraudulence. So types of wording of voices in your head that really, you might want to listen to, because those are good signals of imposter syndrome. Is I'm not good enough. Or Rohini posted this morning that she's been nominated Geospatial World in the 50 Rising Stars, and she's thinking, am I really worth it? You get a promotion and you think, I don't know what to, like, am I really worth that promotion? You get a new job that you really want it, and you fought for it, and then you get that and you feel, I'm not really, everybody's so much smarter than me. How am I gonna do it? Or who do I think I am? All that sort of, an internal dialogue, really internal voice that tells you that you're a fraud, that someone is gonna find out. And when they find out who you really are, and they are not really as good as you somehow managed to fool them to believe, they will fire you, or they will just, push you aside, but something bad is gonna happen. Also important to know that it's often triggered by situations where the stakes are quite high. So if you're in your comfort zone, nothing really changes, you've been in your job for 20 years or whatever, chances are that you're probably not feeling like an imposter, because you're quite comfortable, you know what you're doing. But the moment you step out of your comfort zone, or you get recognized for what you've been doing, and the expectations on you feel really high, that's a really fertile ground for imposter syndrome. And then last piece of this definition is that this imposter syndrome, this feeling of being a fraud or not being good enough, persists even in spite of facts that indicate objectively that exactly the opposite is true. So I'm sure that Rohini has done amazing things to be nominated among the 50 rising stars of Geospatial in the world, but she's discounting all those things, all those amazing awards and achievements that she's done so far. And so I think that altogether, this is a definition, I hope quite comprehensive, of imposter syndrome and how it shows up.
Wow, thank you so very much. I think while you were talking about imposter syndrome, you mentioned something. You said imposter syndrome is not a disease, but it's an experience. So I want us to hold that with us as we go ahead in the discussion this evening. So if you think you've been experiencing this, know that you don't have a disease. No.
Completely not. Actually, just maybe I don't want to go into historical stuff and a lot of theory, but the reason it's called imposter syndrome is that the first person to kind of create this wording was Dr. Pauline Clance, was a clinical psychologist in the 70s, US psychologist. And she observed this phenomenon, really, by observing, in that case, was like a sample of professional women. And she came up with this definition, with this wording of imposter syndrome. Later on, many years later, she said that she actually regrets using that word syndrome because it's more of a phenomenon, really. But again, so we need to really look beyond that syndrome word that might be really misleading and just, accept that is really a very, very common experience. And it's, again, everything that, like, it's something that we build up in our head, and it's not really, I mean, it's a real feeling. So don't get me wrong, I'm not discounting the feeling of imposterism, but it's not something like anxiety, or that actually needs a cure, or to be solved somehow. Right.
Yeah, thank you once again. So a quick question. How do you think we can train ourselves to overcome this thought or feelings of maybe self-doubt, or what we can do whenever we feel that way?
Yes, Sarah. So I also want to say that with anything that has to do with personal development and personal growth, I don't think that you can fix it forever. So you don't work on imposter syndrome once, or you spend like a month, 2 weeks, I'm going to work really hard, do exercises, and it's going to be gone. It's something that we learn to live with and to make sure. And I think for me, the most important piece is we need to make sure that imposter syndrome is not getting in the way of what we want to achieve, of our own greatness, of our dreams and aspirations. That said, there are a few things. And so the first thing is that I think it's very important to talk about it and be quite open. Talk to your friends, to a confidant, to a coach if you have one. Because again, other people will help you put things in perspective, because it's really easy to get in your head and really believe 100% what you've been thinking. And what other people can help you do, which I think is really the core, is go back to those objective facts that actually show you that if you got that job, if you got that promotion, if you got the speaking opportunity, if you are where you are, there are good reasons for it. You deserved it. You worked hard. You achieved it. And so when I'm coaching people, I often tell them to write a list of at least 20 facts, 20 achievements that they basically show that they actually are good enough for that role, of that position. And whenever you're trying to write something and you think, I know that doesn't count, that's actually something that counts. That still is your own inner critic and inner voice telling you that you should be discounting that what maybe even praise from someone or a referral or comments are just don't really count. So all of that counts, and it's really important to just put it black on white and really, again, stick to the objective facts to counteract that feeling of I'm an imposter for sure, like I'm absolutely don't know how I got it.
So thanks for that. Rohini, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I am reading these fabulous comments coming through our chat, and let me go with Rabia's one first, because Rabia, I feel that also. When someone appreciates me, I feel guilty because I feel like I don't put in as much as I'm supposed to. And Rabia, I don't know about you. This, for me, even includes my mom and everybody around me. I just can't handle appreciation. So for Rabia and I and everybody like us, Isabella, how do you deal with that?
Yes, absolutely. If I had to say, and maybe a bit of context also, we, generally speaking, first of all, two things. The human brain is wired to perceive and to remember negative comments and negative criticism a lot more than positive comments and praise. They're just evolutionary. We had to be more active and more perceptive of danger because we were in the savannah hunting and gathering, and that's still part of our brain. So anything positive slides down, and anything negative, that's what we continuously think about. And there's also this tendency that is associated with imposter syndrome of internalizing failure and externalizing success. What it means that when you do something good and you receive praise and you have an achievement, you tend to discount it, to attribute it to external factors. Might it be I've been lucky, or I just put a lot of effort, so it's not me, it's just anyone. If someone else put as much effort and work as I put, they would do the same. Or we find external factors, so it's not me, it's not my goodness, it's something else that I've done or something else external. The opposite, when we fail, rather than saying, well, I probably didn't prepare enough, or wasn't the right time, wasn't the right role, we say, I'm a bad person, I'm not worth it, I'm just not worth this role. And so that's something that also we need to start unwire. And again, easier said than done, but it starts with appreciating praise, to really accept compliments, to celebrate successes also. Because again, another tendency connected to imposter syndrome is that we achieve something, cool, tick the box, maybe happy for about a second, and then go to the next challenge and go to the next challenge, and we never really stop to absorb that success. And so if we don't absorb it, we don't register in our mind that that's actually one of the objective facts that then we can use when imposter syndrome comes up, and we feel that absolutely there is no reason why I should be here.
Thank you for that. So you've highlighted many different things, how we can try to overcome imposter syndrome. It doesn't just go away one day. You don't just wake up and it's gone. No, it takes time, but we all have to make conscious efforts to make sure that we work towards not allowing it to bring us down, to deter us from whatever we are trying to achieve. So the next question is, how can we help each other in our network with this?
Yes, and I think the network is really, really important. Again, it's like the very first step is to recognize that this is what's going on. Is imposter syndrome, it's nothing else. And so talking and sharing, it's really, really effective and really, really helpful. Because when you talk, like with any other vulnerability, to be honest, when you talk about it openly, it's not just a benefit to you because you get something out of your chest, but it also gives other people, in this case other women as well, the courage, the freedom to do the same. And so really opening up the dialogue and the conversation around imposter syndrome, and recognizing again that no matter how great you are, and I mean, I've actually a bunch of quotes and from very famous actresses and actors and CEOs of companies that all admit that they have imposter syndrome. Michelle Obama does it, Oprah, everyone. And so again, first of all, the sense of community and network in normalizing this phenomenon as well. The second bit is really helping each other find those and celebrate successes. Again, your network, your community is the people that will just bring you up and help you recognize and celebrate successes. And again, also help each other with finding those facts and those objective qualities and achievements that you have. And by the way, you can do absolutely, this is something that can be a very personal journey. You can just like sit on your desk and just write down all the achievements and but with a community, whether unfortunately these days is virtual or is actually in person, if we'll go back to a good mix of both, it's a lot more powerful.
And Isabella, thank you so much. I think these are making too much sense in my head right now. And I have a very difficult question from Jenny Feng. Feng, thanks so much for posting that article. While I was preparing for this webinar, I came across the same Harvard Business Review article. And basically the question that the article asked is, we should stop telling women they have imposter syndrome. And instead of asking them to overcome it, we should work around and ask everybody else not to make them feel that way. And I think, Johnny, you had pointed out the same thing. Like it's an issue of inclusion. There is the systemic bias that we see, and particularly in the misogynistic cultures, where we are made to feel undeserving, unqualified, doubtful. And I'm going to add one more thing to it from a personal experience, like a conservative culture where I grew up in India. Girls are expected to be polite in not rejoicing their success, in not even succeeding or even showing off to that. So Isabella, what do you think about that? Do you think it's more than just asking women to overcome it? Is the research outdated a little bit, like you pointed out in the beginning with the word syndrome?
Yeah, it's absolutely an interesting point. And again, I also want to stress that it's not necessarily a gender specific phenomenon. And that's really important, because like the reason why, again, we'll get back to the actual question, but like it's probably good to put it out there, because it's also part of society and stigma, why a lot of men don't feel really safe admitting that they also suffer from imposter syndrome, because it's just society wants men to be strong and women to be open and more communicative and vulnerable. So that's also a big issue, that if we were all, again, so society was like a little bit different, and the structure allowed everyone to be really open with their vulnerabilities, we won't feel that isolated in feeling imposter syndrome. Now, this said, and by the way, when I was doing my research for Colombia for my coaching program, I just anecdotally interviewed a number of very senior leaders. At that point, I was at Google, so mostly Google, female and male. And I was shocked, because like all the like really alpha males, they were all saying, yes, of course, I feel like an imposter every time I'm in this room with super smart engineers or with the CEO and they ask me a question. It's like, so what do you do? Well, what can I do? I'll just brush it off and just keep going. So again, we could spend an entire hour just thinking or talking about how men and women deal with imposter syndrome differently, because I think it's also what you do with it. Do you brush it off and just don't really believe it fully, or you kind of dwell on it? Now, that aside, absolutely, there is one of the triggers and factors that contributes to imposter syndrome, to these feelings, is the condition of being an outsider, right? Being a minority or an outsider in a certain group. And surely, as women, we are outsiders in many groups in our professional life. You might be one of the few people in a leadership team, on a tech team, on a panel, at a conference, and so on and so forth. And I think that absolutely, while there are broader structural changes, societal changes that we should all fight for and promote and do our best in our, what we can do individually, but also at higher level politically and so on and so forth. Also, how do we make sure that, to your point, Sarah, before, how do we make sure that women can thrive in the work environment throughout their lives without sacrificing family or work and career? Just someone flagged to me today that the 40-hour week is something that was created when men alone worked, right? And women were taking care of everything else. And now we juggle 40-hour weeks, usually maybe 50 or 60, and everything else. So yes, I think absolutely we should work on that. And I don't think working on yourself individually and your self-perception and framing of situation, I think they're not mutually exclusive. Because also in the end, the only thing that you can have full control of is yourself and your mind. And so while we do work on hiring more women, having more women in power in political roles, and we mentor each other, we support each other, we also, I think it's, again, being able to reframe your thinking and your psychological experience of what you're living. It's a tool that you can implement by yourself without anything that needs to happen around you. Yeah, so just to sum up, absolutely we should do both, and keep the two work streams in parallel. Well, working on your own imposter syndrome and helping others, it's a lot more immediate. While unfortunately other changes will take a bit of time, but I would love to know what other people think about this topic, which is clearly very, very pregnant with meaning.
The topic is really a broad one, and I think you are doing justice to it. Yeah. So actually, when I saw this topic, I had to do a thinking myself, and that was when I discovered that I've been in this category before, and there is nothing someone tells me like you're trying to say, oh, you did this right, you did that right, and I will just brush it aside and say, oh, that's nothing. If it's not because of this person, or if it's not because of this factor, probably it will have flopped. So while talking, you mentioned internalizing failure and externalizing success. So many people actually do that, and there is something that there are sometimes some people don't even know they have this imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how do you know if you have the what we're talking about, imposter syndrome, or if it's just an actual challenge you're having, or whether you just lack the knowledge, or if people are just unnecessarily being hard on you? That's a question from Jacqueline also. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, I think that it's self-awareness that you need to keep cultivating, right? And for me, and just to maybe give you a very tangible example, I didn't know I had been suffering from very, very severe imposter syndrome until I read about it a year later, a couple of years later. And I was completely shocked because like that changed everything for me. Even in retrospective, I couldn't change my past and what happened, and specifically my very, very bad year of imposter syndrome that specifically goes around joining business school and feeling like completely out of place, and really affect me badly in many, many ways. But I didn't have a language for it. I had no idea that there was an option. And one option was that I was feeling imposter syndrome. So I ended up just believing everything I felt. So I believed that I was in that MBA program because I was a woman and they needed to reach their quota. I believed that I was the less smart person of everyone and I should not make any comment or raise my hand because I would say something stupid, and so on and so forth. So I think that just even understanding that, or knowing that there is this thing that is called imposter syndrome and it's really common, and could it be that what I'm feeling is this actually? Could it be that if I'm in this MBA program or in this conference or whatever I am, I'm here for a reason and something that is not just luck or I fooled everyone. And again, I think that's asking yourself that question, listening to your inner voice and looking at really objectively at facts, and also looking more objectively at the people around you, because what we often do is that we compare our worst with other people's best, and so that comparison, it's really not healthy, right? Because like you failed at something and you're just comparing yourself in that situation with the amazing thing that your colleague or friend has done. So again, it's a fine line, and between actually lacking skills or feeling imposter syndrome or feeling lack of confidence. It's subtle, but I think that asking yourself the question, and you'll know, and it's a muscle that you build. And to my earlier point where I say that you don't fix it once and forever, it will show up whenever you're in those high stake situations. But you knowing that that's possible and starting to recognize what does that voice sound like for you, because for some people might be I'm not good enough, for some people might be everybody else is better than me, for some people might be what do you think you are. And so recognizing that voice, it will make a lot more immediate to know and to become aware that that's the loop in which you're getting yourself and taking a step back. So it's just, again, that cycle of like, okay, what's going on? It's imposter syndrome. Chill, take a breath. You actually deserve being where you are. It will become a lot faster and a lot less, let's say, it will have a less impact on your actual life and behavior and actions. Because again, sometimes people think that imposter syndrome could be actually good for you, because like it's the driving force that drives you to excellence. If that's the case, that's probably just a very healthy self-criticism and, you know, a very humble attitude towards achievements. Amazing. But if the outcome and the impact of this imposter syndrome is actually paralyzing, it's holding you back, and, you know, even driving you to self-sabotaging behaviors, that's when you want to place a bit more attention and trying to unwire that the circuits in your brain.
Thank you, Isabella. There is a very great comment from R. Quebec, and it has started a waterfall of conversation here in the chat. It was about toxic work culture and how that being one of the important reasons to get into this cycle of doubting oneself. And I have comments and reply, including myself, but from Carol, Rabia, Joanne, Petra, and Jenny, and a lot more people here talking about the toxic work culture, which now it makes me feel like a majority of people have faced this. I always thought it was me. And even when it felt like I knew, you know, pragmatically thinking, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was taking it in, but I always ended up quitting because I couldn't take it anymore. And I quit more times than I can count now. And now that I see all these different comments about toxic work culture, quitting might not be an option for everybody if you're not fortunate enough to move. How do we handle that? Because that really makes us to question ourselves. And more often, you're not in a position to talk back. So do you have any comments? How do you handle yourself in that situation?
Yeah.
Thanks for the sigh.
It's hard.
Hear the weight of it.
Yeah, and it's so way beyond imposter syndrome, right? Because again, imposter syndrome is really a reaction to something good that happened to you, right? Otherwise, there's nothing to feel like an imposter about. It's usually, right?
That's true. But in a toxic work culture, how I felt, like I can give you an example. I had a person who told me upfront on my face, you're hired because you're brown and you're a woman and we need a diversity, irrespective of what I have done. And I was much younger and a lot less mature at that time. And automatically I started thinking that's probably true. Maybe I'm not the most qualified to be here. Although now that I look back, I'm like, I was more qualified than that person. So I think that kind of feeds into it, no? Or maybe I'm not understanding this well yet. Hello, Sarah, can you still hear me?
Yes, I think I can hear you now.
I think did I freeze?
Yeah,
probably.
yeah,
Let me
we got
just
you back.
stop sharing my screen. Here we go. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
The joys of working from home. So yeah, I followed up to your story. Yeah, it's very, very, it's one of those things that we were mentioning before, those structural changes that are bigger than ourselves individually. And to be honest, I don't really have a good answer for it. The only thing that we are all being in toxic environments, and it's, as you said, it's not always possible to leave or to leave straight away. But what I found is that even in those toxic environments, I managed to find people that were more like me than unlike me. And so if you can create like your little community or network of people you can trust, so you feel more aligned with, that might be what you need to survive in that environment. Yeah, it's because like this is like beyond gender, beyond anything. It just yeah, that there are women in power that are absolutely terrible, and then like I've had so many bad examples of female leaders that I would never want them to be my boss ever again, and created that culture of toxic environment as well, which is really sad. But yeah, if anyone has suggestions in the chat, because like it's a tough one,
I'm
not
seeing one
one
of the
we can necessarily
suggestions
change.
coming up about managing up, that some have started sharing some links, trying to understand, especially if it is of a supervisor or so. So I think that's one thing people could consider.
Yeah, I think the last job I had, I was the only female in the department. And yeah, I was the only female, and the other male counterparts are even seen they are superior to me. So it looks odd at a point, and I would just be quiet, not because I was afraid my opinion could mean something else. But what I did was I keep doing what I think is the best, try to know my field well, so that I achieve the result I'm expected to achieve, and even go overboard. Like when I'm expected to turn in a project, and even though they feel, oh, she might not be able to do this, everyone is surprised at the end when I turn it in, and they'll be like, oh, we didn't know you could do this, you could actually do this. And at the end of the day, I discovered that they were the one now coming to me. Oh, I want you to explain this thing to me. I want you to explain this. How did you get this? How did you get that? And then it became as if I became a kind of trainer to all of them in the unit. And then I now serve as an intermediary between the manager, that's the overall supervisor, and these people. Even while I was leaving, they were all saying, oh, who will be our next teacher? That was the comment. So as Isabella said, it's not about the gender. Sometimes it's not the gender, it's just the people, the personality of the people there, not the gender, because some women are there that will still try to pull you down, especially, oh, probably they feel you want to take their position and you're striving with them, and they actually wouldn't want you to climb higher than them. So it's not all about the gender. That's what I want us to get from it. Gender plays a kind of role at times, but it isn't every time. Sometimes it's about the personality. So my advice is, we know these things are there and they will always be there, but then know your onions, know your profession, know your craft very well, and do it as you're supposed to do it. your work will speak for you at the end of the day. So, Isabella, sometimes the traumatic events that people have gone through could really lead to imposter syndrome, and probably because of the things they've gone through in the environment or amongst friends and other things before.
Mm-hmm.
And can you kind of speak towards that, like how traumatic events may lead to imposter syndrome, and then how to overcome that? Because sometimes we feel imposter syndrome is just from within, from personal experience, like what we are just going through, what we think, what we feel. But sometimes the way we feel is from an external factor, and at times it's just from a traumatic event that one has gone through before. So can you please talk more about that?
Yes, and yeah, this is like a really interesting point, because like absolutely, we at the end of the day, we are the result of everything that has happened in our lives up to this moment, and especially in the early stages of our lives, etc., etc. So everything, all those experiences influence our perception of success and failure, and how do we take on criticism, and how gentle or not we are to ourselves, etc., etc. So absolutely, there is upbringing and there are experiences that will affect and will make imposter syndrome more or more easily triggered or more prominent in some people rather than others. I don't think the how to work with that is any different, but I think that it's really, really helpful. And this goes to a completely different field that I don't feel qualified to talk about, but it is really that self-awareness, really, really deep of why certain things, because that's something that only you know, right? You and your therapist, if you have one, maybe sometimes not even your closest friends. So, and from the outside, your support group of women or colleagues or trusted people can only do as much, because they can only help you what is visible from the outside. They can only help you identify how great you are and celebrate your successes and support you and so on and so forth. But that inner work of really understanding, why am I really reacting so, or why do I just really take any little piece of criticism so strongly, or why I just react in certain ways. That understanding and it's a much deeper work that I think goes way beyond imposter syndrome, right? So anything working with trauma, and it's a completely long-term journey, and not just with trauma, but I think that I sometimes say that, and again, this is really personal choice, but absolutely everyone would benefit from doing therapy if they can, because it's just an amazing journey of self-awareness that shades a lot of light on anything, including imposter syndrome. But again, I'm surely not qualified to talk more about trauma, because it's such an important topic and I don't want to minimize it.
Fair enough. Isabella, I have another quick question. Are there any books that have helped you or anybody you know that one could go towards, or other than actively thinking about it and working on ourselves, what are the external things we could do to overcome or learn more about imposter syndrome? Because I liked a lot of different points you have said so far in making sure that the imposter syndrome doesn't go into overconfidence, but also differentiating it with other different toxic things that could be happening. Then I was just wondering out loud, perhaps some in the audience might have that too. If there is anything, or we are also happy to hear from you. I didn't mean to put you on spot to send it over to us afterwards on some interesting reads.
Yeah, I could. Something that really helped me, and again, it goes way beyond, because I don't think there's any, but there are some books interesting on imposter syndrome that show you, just tell you many stories of many different women that make you really realize how pervasive and common and normal it is. It's really, really normal, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? So there are a number, I can definitely send some articles. I love any of Brené Brown's books. They're more around vulnerability and courage, which I think they are extremely connected to imposter syndrome. Again, she says sometimes that you can't really respect anything really worth pursuing, and courageous is scary, right? And it will come with some feeling of imposter syndrome. So yeah, I love her books, which are also full of research and stats and numbers and like really very factuals. Yeah, but I have to say that it really, really helps me more, and is constantly helps me, is just this sort of conversations. And whether it's talking to friends or to people that I don't know, or just, yeah, talking about it and seeing what other people think, and what has worked for them, and also how, yeah, sometimes imposter syndrome can take shapes that we're not necessarily familiar with. But again, hearing someone else mentioning it, it just makes it also a bit more sensitive and ready to capture that in ourselves. But yeah, I'm more than happy to share some of my readings, and maybe we can collect from people and suggestions in the chat as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I will surely look forward to those books or those things that you think can help us in overcoming the external ones. Not, yeah. So, what do you think about people that feel they do not fit into a particular place? And like, there is a question that says, I've been afraid. I'm an international student in USA, and I have been afraid to ask questions in class, and always thought I am the least capable and smart in the class. Yeah, what can you say to this person?
Yeah, that I've been there. Again, was what I was telling before about my story, and yeah, during business school, I felt exactly the same. And before getting there, I thought I was like, yeah, pretty good. I got admitted, I passed my GMAT, I was very proud. And then I got there, and I was like, whoa, wait a second. I'm the first one in my family to have gone to university. All these people like seem so experienced and smart and have 4 different citizenships, and I felt completely out of place in many different ways, because sometimes, actually often, it's not just one factors. You might feel like an outsider because of your could be, yeah, socioeconomic segment, your gender, your race. You also might feel not adequate because of your experience, but it's a combination of things. The thing I would say is knowing, so you know that you have a choice. You have the choice to believe that that's actually true, that you don't deserve raising a question, that your questions will be stupid and will not add value. Or you have the choice to believe that actually you're completely entitled to be there, and just try and ask the question, and try to take a small step at the time. I'll find this actually, there is this writer, and I'll share this, Valerie Young, and can't remember exact phrasing, but what she says that is not about feeling 100% comfortable and 100% confident and then acting as confident. It's about trusting, just doing, and then trusting that your confidence will catch up. So it's a little bit of the, I don't like the saying fake it until you make it, but it's more fake it until you believe you are it, because you are it already in reality, or you're catching up, but you need to trust that you have the capacity, you have that ability, and maybe, yes, you're not 100% there, but you can definitely like get there, just bridge that 10% gap. So it's a little bit of a leap of faith, but I would say, yeah, it's always a choice. What you believe is true.
Yeah, trust that you have all it takes to achieve it, and believe in what you have, believe in what you know. Can you hear me? Yeah, so
Yes, I can. Yes.
okay, I have another question here that says sometimes I want to tell coworkers that I am experiencing imposter syndrome because I want them to understand I'm struggling with something and that they are part of the problem. But I wonder if that would do more harm to me than good. I don't want sympathy. Do you recommend talking to people who especially make us feel bad, or just let it go and only work on my own personal growth?
Um, it's always a very personal choice what we decide to share and who we decide to be vulnerable with, right? So if you feel that being vulnerable with someone specific will actually do you more, even on a personal level, will actually make you feel even more vulnerable rather than stronger, maybe it's a good choice not to, right? Because like at the end of the day, sharing should make you feel more empowered and a little bit freer. So it's yeah, it's really personal who you share with. But I also want to flag that it's always short recognizing that there are external factors and other people that are not particularly tactful or yeah, um, but again, we can't really blame. Like, yeah, we can blame, but it doesn't take you anywhere, right? So in the short term, the only thing that you really have 100% control of is yourself and your attitude and your way of thinking. So that's yeah, that's my point of view.
Thank you for that. I'm sure the person who asked that question is still here to listen to that. Yeah. So sometimes peers, colleagues, they share their uh what they are going through, they share with you because they believe so much in you. And probably someone tells you, oh, I'm experiencing imposter syndrome. How can we help these peers? Or sometimes it might be employees, not even peers, who comes
Mm-hmm.
to you and open up and say, oh, I'm having imposter syndrome. How do we help such people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. So first of all, if even once it happened to you, just tell it because it will make them feel less lonely, right? So just giving them, first of all, it's really a good, the fact that they come to you and they feel free and comfortable telling you about their imposter syndrome is it's a good sign that you probably created a safe environment around you. So yeah, if it is true, just share it, or share that you know other people, many other people, and amazing people, they also suffer from imposter syndrome. Um, and then, yes, I think the important part, it's helping them recognize, again, everything we've gone through today, recognize that it's completely like in their heads. They don't need, they don't have to believe everything that they're thinking, that there is an option to, again, um, accept that it's an inner critic voice is something that is not really founded in objective facts and reality, and really helping them go through that journey, or recognizing their own worth, really.
Isabella, this is fantastic. It's amazing how many things have gone into my mind, and I keep thinking, oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, that's me. So the things you have shared really made me just take a step back and realize, oh wow, and it's not just me, it's 100+ people who joined in today, and all the things that I could do as you suggested. I'm trying to do one last Slido poll, so participants, please, if you could use hashtag 50899, and with all the comments Isabella had, as well as all the amazing chat comments that colleagues provided today, we want to see what is the takeaway on what you think, how we can address imposter syndrome. I just want to say some positive notes, because Isabella, I believe that is how I feel right now, completely energized, and a lot of inputs to reflect more on. And I think from now on, I would be quick to recognize that is what it is, and think a bit more. And I'm probably talking on everybody's behalf, if that's how they all feel as well. In the last 2 minutes, let me quickly add this here so everybody can see. And I think some of the things coming in are, oh wow, believe in yourself is the biggest thing that people think that we should be doing. And I absolutely love that. It's true. And other things are like, know your value, talk about it. And that's probably what we did today as well. Let me quickly share my screen here, if that would be better to see. And there are these wonderful things coming in, like self-confidence. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. I'm sorry, my internet is not the best today. I have recognized my accomplishments, practice affirmation, identify your limiting beliefs. And this is my favorite, whoever it is from, think objectively. And yeah, that really helps, huh? So Isabella, over to you for the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, I would say, yes, it's just like, sometimes I say, pretend that there's like an external consultant examining your situation objectively, completely, and looking at facts, stripping away all your inner feelings. But yeah, just to, these are really, really lovely closing remarks. And I just, yeah, want to thank you all for having this conversation, because I think that, again, yeah, it's a positive note. It's not a syndrome. It's something that a lot of us experience, and we can absolutely overcome it as it arises, right? And yeah, let's continue to talk it. Let's continue to support each other, and to, yeah, show each other how to believe in ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And thank you so much. Thank you for your time and sharing with us. And Sarah, thank you so much for great co-facilitating with you, and for hundreds of participants. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your thoughts. We will summarize some of these bigger points and share it with, through our social media or through our website. And this video will also be available through our website if you want to share it with people who might find it interesting. So overall, I hope you all believe in yourself, and we will be more confident moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And thank you so much, Isabella. You did justice to the topic. Yeah, but I myself learned a great deal from here, and I feel more confident after this. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your days and evenings.
In there.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.